you can't solve climate change without nuclear power.
A fundamental failing that really is much more basic is the tendency to assume that the way we see the world is the way the world really is, that other reasonable people should see it the same way, and if they don't see it the same way, it's because there's something wrong with them, some bias that's affecting them. It can be the propaganda to which they've been exposed. It can be some failing in their intelligence. It can be something about their education, but we readily think that when people disagree with us, it's because there's something wrong with them, not something wrong with us, or at least not something that's affecting both of us, that's making us simply disagree.
You talking about me?
So in work on conflict resolution that I've done, Israeli military leaders are perfectly willing to concede that if they had been born Palestinians, they might be Palestinian terrorists or freedom fighters, depending on how you want to label it, and vice versa. By that, they don't mean that the other person is just as right or righteous as they are, but they believe that had they been in that other context, they would have been misled the same way the other person was misled.
He's talking about you. He's talking about you. Okay, I'm going to try and defend my belief that you can't solve climate change without nuclear power. So doing some math with the current installed renewables plus nuclear energy, to replace the current needs on the world, you'd have to increase the renewables by 7 times, the current and renewables plus nuclear by 5 times. Using Hans Rollins as a reference, the population of the world will increase from 7 billion to 10 billion. And using some data from the internet, the current energy per person to get the average person in the world up to a decent standard will approximately double. So we do some math, some simple algebra, as Bill Gates says, and we come up with to solve climate change with just renewables, you have to increase the current installed renewable, or every windmill, solar panel, and nuclear plant multiplied by 14.
And that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So those are the 4 possible cells. Those are the 4 possible outcomes here. Next, we're going to talk about 6 leads of opinion change. Now, these are things that students in the course can use when they're encountering new evidence that contradicts a belief that they hold dear.
Okay, the Solutions Project does do the math to show that renewables only is possible, but there's a lot of discussion about the cost and the commitment that would be required. Nuclear isn't as dangerous as it's made out to be. Compared to others, alternatives, it is relatively safe. Plans are in place to supply 1/4 of the world's power from nuclear. 3rd and 4th generation advances will make it safer and more efficient. And of course, someday fusion and the ITER project will show that fusion is eventually possible.
Especially now that we have the ability for people to choose their own media, in a sense, by focusing on certain sources on the internet, information has become far more fragmented. People have become more immersed in their own sort of bubble of information they like. And that is what they're consuming to the exclusion of everything else.
You talking about me? Maybe I do have some confirmation bias in my research. Okay, I have no idea what innovations will happen in the future, but we've had a long history of solving some of the world's most challenging problems, and we've also come up with a lot of great ways to learn more efficient ways to learn.
That's right, and that's exactly right.
Of storage in our memories is that that's a process of linking up any new information with what we already know. And in fact, rather than thinking of your memory as some sort of box or tape that the more you have in it or on it, the less room you have, Actually, memory storage creates capacity for additional storage. The more knowledge you have in some domain, the more ways there are to link things up and hook things up.